Well, hello there. This is Susan Hamilton, and you're listening to the OffBeat Business Show. Thank you so much for tuning in during your valuable lunch hour. We value you so much, American business, and we understand who you are because we are representing that 80% of American small business that are family-owned businesses of 9 employees or less. And that means you probably got some veterans in your midst, don't you? You probably are working with a veteran or living with a veteran or first responder. And right now, our nation's in crisis. And I have a real treat for you today. We are talking with Veronica Sites, a registered responder with Homeland Security, and someone who is called upon for her wisdom in the area of traumatic mass casualty. And we can't get this information out fast enough because somehow, American business, we've got to get up and get moving. And we can't let these things knock us down, and they can, can't they, Veronica?
They can, and you see it in the bottom line. Anybody that keeps track on their profit-loss margin, they are going to see an impact if they don't do some preventative measures right now.
That's what I thought was really stirred me when we talked, is that you believe, and you've seen and had success in this area ever since Hurricane Katrina, that our response immediately after, our response during those sensitive moments when we are still reeling, when our brain probably has had injury, those are those moments when we can actually make some choices that will push us in the right direction instead of causing these really, really deep, dark bruises.
It's true. And the thing that is so devastating about invisible wounds is that is the key, is no one sees them, but the individuals feel them. Whereas if you have a laceration, stop the bleeding, tend to it, antibiotics before you have an infection and festering and, an ongoing process. We know what to do with what happens on the outside. We neglect, forget, and are very ill-informed as to how to take care of what is not seen, neglected, dismissed, denied, or just shoved on down so we can move on to the next thing.
Well, as a woman, that's what we do. What I've seen my husband go through with brain injury this last year, I know that a man from my experience kind of shuts down, whereas a woman just really pushes it down. And I'm busy. I've got things to do. This can't destroy me or get in the way. At the same time, we feel like there's a level of resilience in that. So what's the difference in that healthy, moving past and not obsessing on this terrible thing that just happened and recognizing an injury occurred and I have to nurture this now for healing?
Well, one of the things that's different about some men and women is that we women, we may shove it down and think to ourselves, I'll deal with it later.
Right.
But the thing is, we've got to deal with it at some point. Otherwise, it becomes compressed, more pressurized, very much like the illustration of the carbonated drink. That carbonated drink, when it's shaken up, we know what's going to happen on the inside.
Now, wait a minute. You're saying later it really does happen, that we have to deal with the later.
If you don't deal with it now, you're going to be dealing with a bigger mess later. And the thing about it is, there's a lot you can do preventative, and this is what I am firmly passionate about, especially in business. If we don't take measures to recognize that all of our employees, that the people that are running and operating our businesses or a part of our team have the same feelings and humanize the employee care that we have an opportunity to produce, helpful educational programs for them. It's normal under the circumstances that we're dealing with today for people to be returning. It's not just an average Monday. This is a Monday where we've been gut punched over and over in the last month. Right. As an employer, as an owner, operator, whatever the position is, if you're a leader in that business and don't recognize the need to deal with the real, you're going to deal with some real hard crunch numbers in the profit loss margin, because over time performance wanes. So I'm a big believer on doing what you need to do to plan, prepare, and perform as a top performer, even when the circumstances knock you down.
Well, that sounds great, but we need a little more guidance, Veronica. We're really struggling here. The tensions, I'm seeing some wonderful things come up out of the Christian community about unity and realizing we've really got to be open to what's happening in America today. Have the conversations that are so difficult that we're not having, and I get that. But we're still struggling. It's ridiculous the amount of information overload out there. Everyone's got an opinion. Everybody's got a soapbox. When is the focus really? Is there an appropriate time to mourn? Should this be going on for just a period of time? And what's our next step?
Well, I firmly believe that if we are believers, we've got to recognize it's God first. In business, it's God first in our checkbooks. It's God first in our care. It's God first in every aspect of how we operate as human beings. God's got to be first in everything. So yes, he does say there is a time and there is a season for everything. And in light of that, the mourning, if it's never dealt and processed with, the good thing, the great news about this as believers is that we have a God that we run into as a fortress. He's our strong tower and we are safe. When we turn our focus in such a way that it's like, okay, I'm not feeling safe right now, but I know from where my safety comes, and I know where I am upheld with his righteous right hand, therefore I can breathe. He's my breath. I can receive him. So he's first in my thoughts. He's first in my actions. And I choose to implement how I will submit to his lordship in my life. I find peace in that. One of the beautiful things, Susan, that I love is about one of the names, Jehovah Shalom, is not peace, just the absence of chaos, but in the Hebrew, that means to make whole,
Right.
and it means to bring rest. And when we can really press in, lean in to who he is, as business owners, as Christ followers, wherever we're at, there is a strength that allows us not only healing, but strengthening to be the person, the neighbor to the community. That the world is watching.
Right.
And we are the hope. And it is our privilege and mandate to light the way in the darkest of times.
And, I agree with that 100%, and that is our first step, is recognizing that we're not alone and that we're being held up. But there's other things now that we are in that mandate. We got to, like you said, we are our brother's keeper. We are taking care of our neighborhood. We are taking care of, America feeds the world. For however you feel about that, it's a fact.
Yeah.
What do we do now? How do we start reconciliation, and how do we look at our staff? Should we be having meetings with our staff? Should we be talking about this and opening that up? And what would that look like if we did?
One of the things I strongly encourage is, yes, even if you don't have an HR department and you're the leader in that business, take on the role of HR and just be informative. Bring somebody in. I'd love to come and just inform, educate, and let them know, one, what's normal under the circumstances, two, what to be aware of. Because in management or team leaders, whatever the scope is in a corporation, you've got people that know their team. And just being aware of what to watch for, indicators that there may be some undercurrent, internal issues that somebody's dealing with. There is no shame. There is no stigma. And the beautiful thing about our humanity is the vulnerability of relationships is also the safety of relationships. Because that same manager can reach out and say, hey, listen, I'm seeing that maybe the performance isn't top notch. What's going on? Just have that conversation and then be the resource to point them in. This is where we can find some help. This is where you can, confidentially get the need met. Because as your employer, as your peer, I'm here to be an advocate for you. And I'm noticing something.
I really like that, Veronica. That's a good point, because that is a call to action to American business. Friends, we do need to know where our resources are in the community. Who do we have right there? I mean, yes, there's phone numbers, but a lot of times, and sometimes that's the right avenue, but a lot of times a face makes all the difference in the world, and because we communicate so much through just the facial recognition and expression.
Absolutely.
And so to know who your immediate resources are, I would say that's probably right up there on understand your firm foundation and then know your resources. And it sounds like the next thing you're saying is to make sure you're available and you're paying attention.
Care enough about the employees that operate and make your business run that you give them the attention that is, it's human compassion. It's reaching into where they are because they are part of your world. Without the team that you have, your business is not going to run smoothly. So we get to ask ourselves, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves, how much does my business really matter? Because each person is a cog in the wheel that keeps my business rolling.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to humanize it in the relationship aspect. But there are sometimes people come to work and they just are so business-minded, business-focused. If it's about numbers, look at the numbers, because if you want to see them wane, that equates to neglect. If you want to see them stabilize, remain the same, or improve, it's going to come down to who the people are.
It sounds like what you're saying is the worst thing we can do is go on like it didn't happen right here, so
Business as usual.
we
That's the
need to
worst
get
thing.
moving. The worst thing to do is that. And time is money. That's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. But so many of us, I believe in this demographic, this really hits us home because someone in our relationship is probably serving in that capacity, because that's who we are.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, we can ask ourselves, okay, it's going to cost me a little bit of time right now as it's unfolding. Is the investment worth the time now and preventing an economic impact to your company? Or are you going to wait till it's necessary and you're reacting to the crisis of your business operation?
I'd like to ask you to paint that picture for us. Well, how bad can this get?
The economy is going to be impacted when we don't. I've seen businesses actually get to the point where they are not producing. They are not producing, whether it's manufacture-wise or it's productivity and service. They start to recognize that the numbers are going down and they don't know what it is. So coming in as a professional, just asking, okay, what's been going on? And just listening to the story behind it. It's like you can trace it back to an event that impacted what was normal operations to the company, and it was never addressed.
Well, that's real handy to know, and it's good for us to going forward, because we would love to say this is going to be over, but I believe we really are in a different era in American business today. America today, period. I believe there's war happening right now, and this is a dangerous time, and I'm not sure. I certainly hope that we've seen the last of it. But we need to be prepared in case we haven't. So friends, you need to really draw into that. And we'll have some resources here. I'm going to ask Veronica more about that when we come back from our break. We're going to take a station break and listen to a few of our sponsors. And when we get back, I'm going to pick Veronica's brain a little bit more about what those first responses to a casualty should be. We get that there's a preventative maintenance, right? But there's something that she's been doing called verbal triage that's getting attention. Because it really is helping. So we're going to learn a few more things from her. We'll be right back. You're listening to Susan Hamilton, the OffBeat Business Show.
Sounds good. We're on pace.
Groovy.
Yeah. What's our second half
That.
going to be? Okay, just more. Okay.
Yes.
Ready for segment 2 then?
Yes.
In a few seconds. Do you need to do anything?
No, good.
And we're back. You're listening to the OffBeat Business Show with Susan Hamilton. I'm talking with Veronica Sites, who is well known in the area for the way that she addresses traumatic mass casualty as a registered responder with Homeland Security. And you've got some other titles.
I do. I'm a chaplain, and my professional title is I'm a conflict resolution expert.
Conflict resolution expert. We have a little conflict going on.
A lot of conflict, and you know what I love about the beauty of my business is that all outer conflict has its root back somewhere in inner conflict. So my lane is wide, but it's very specific to producing top performance in individuals. We've got to get out of our own way, and sometimes right now, today, what we're dealing with is we've got a lot of stuff becoming seeds for obstacles that will come down the road. And if we don't recognize and start pulling up some weeds before they get roots in our thinking, we'll get stinking thinking, poor performance, and a economic downturn, personally and professionally, and in the community.
You know, if you were listening to the first half of the show, Veronica was pointing out that the very worst thing that we can do in a time of crisis in America today is to go on with our business as though nothing happened and go business as usual and, you know, straightforward without stopping and addressing this, the needs of the people of influence, your employees, your staff, your technicians, but also management really needs to be having these discussions so that they can adequately address this and see things that you can't always see by yourself. And then also that other part where we've got to reach out into this community with solutions and be able to do that. What it really interested me when you told me that you had some success when Hurricane Katrina came through was something you dubbed as verbal triage. So it sounds like we can help each other with our words.
Communication is the key to any effective outcome that we want to have. We learn to talk. You know, from toddler up to our adolescence, we're gaining vocabulary all through our adult life. But we're learning to use words. We don't use words to the effect that they can have. So verbal triage is words that you use in a manner that addresses the need accordingly. I'm not going to choose, elementary words to talk to a preschool child. I need to use words that are appropriate to that child.
Okay, so I'm going to have you break that down a little bit more. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Veronica, because I know you're up to it. And we really need to understand this. So give us an example of the wrong response when you're in something that's very traumatic, because that wrong response can actually cause brain injury and make everything that person has just gone through even worse.
Right. Well, one of the things, people are well-meaning when they come, from sympathy or, just to support. They are well-meaning, and we want to give them at least the benefit of the doubt that they intended something from the heart. However, the carelessness of words or just thinking that, saying that I understand. Big mistake.
Wow.
Big mistake.
I'm certain I'm guilty of that, Veronica. I'm certain of it.
We all have been guilty at some point. We want to understand.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is, when I experience the loss of a child, I don't want you to come tell me that you understand unless you have lost a child. And only then, I want to hear you say, I understand what it was like when I lost my child. I don't understand what it was like for you to lose your child. I understand the pain of losing a child because I've experienced it. One, be truthful. And it is such a powerful time to be vulnerable for the purpose of connection. We talk about network, but the people that have the most impact in traumatic situations are people who have experienced the touch of the traumatic in their life and have allowed the Lord, what the enemy means for evil, the Lord means for good.
Right.
Well, that means we embrace. We lean in, not to the hurt as much as we lean into the one that can heal the hurt, and recognize that it touched us for some reason we don't have to understand, but that it touched us, it can make a difference that brings fame to the name of God because of the power of what He's done in my life to heal. Do I miss that child? Yes, I do. Do they mean the world to me every day? Yes. Yes, they do.
But in the light of the racial tensions today, if you're not involved personally in those racial tensions, what is our correct response when we see people and we're networking and we're out and about in our business and we run into people who have a very strong opinion one way or another, and it's the topic, it's the issue, and it's a dangerous place to be if you're not prepared for that conversation, because avoiding is foolishness. That's disrespectful in my opinion. What's the appropriate way to deal with, say, racial tensions?
Well, one of the things is to recognize first we've got a deeper growing tension because there's a lot of people that are hurt. Just to narrow it down in a simplistic way, not to make it benign, but hurt people hurt other people.
Right.
And the more there is hurt within, it doesn't matter if it's the culture or it's the individuals, pain begats pain. And when we recognize that, wait a minute, there is a hurt here, and I don't want to contribute to it. I want to affirm that it's present, and I want to ask, is there anything that you can teach me or I can learn on how to move this in a better direction? Because people will opine, and we want to focus on facts, but the awesome thing about being believers is we've got the truth. And truth trumps facts, and facts override opinions every time.
But it can be a belligerent conversation. I mean, you can get yourself in a situation where there is, oh my.
There is, and
They want to hold you. They want to hold you responsible for things that you personally had nothing to do with,
Exactly.
and no matter what color, or whether or not you are a police officer or not. Right? I mean, we're just holding each other to these ridiculous standards. I think, and not to make that pain. I agree. That's terrible. And I've seen it working within the criminal justice system myself. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt we have got a serious problem with the way we address criminal justice, and it's absolutely impacting us. And we have a big problem when it comes to fatherlessness, and those things definitely contribute to the attitude and the willingness to accept authority, right?
Yes.
In all those areas,
Yes.
they do matter. So you've written some books, and I've got a couple here I want to show you. When you watch this video, you'll be able to see them. Can you see that?
So that little book, Conflict Resolution Solutions, is its focal point is communication. And my passion is to help people guide a conversation not towards escalation, but to recognize when something is escalating within themselves, observing and being aware how do you interact when on the other end the person that you're speaking to begins to escalate. Because we have hot buttons and we tend to overgeneralize a lot. As far as you mentioned, those can be very tense conversations. We overgeneralize,
and you can walk into them without expecting it these days.
Exactly.
I mean, they are there, and you at some point you want to be, you want to stand for right and truth and love, and you could. There's no matter where you stand, there's a good possibility of attack out there, and that's just talking about the tensions of. I'm glad you addressed this here with conflict resolution solutions. We really do need. We do need to understand that. When you're talking about verbal triage, though, once that, say we're talking about this area, what's going on in Dallas here, where we're recording, and now here again in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
When your verbal triage is, you don't go into this situation and say, I understand, when I don't. So that's no place for me. I need to say, wow, help me understand.
So one of the biggest things is to help individuals know. So I always start with a question. Susan, tell me about your day-to-day. How are you feeling? I know that sounds cliche, but I want to know, how do you feel about the news that we got yesterday concerning Baton Rouge? And so you would tell me, and I want to posture to listen. And I don't just want to listen. I really want to hear what you say. I want to hear how you say it, the pace, any stress in your voice. Those are the things I'm listening to.
Mm-hmm.
And then recognize and affirm what you're feeling under these circumstances, completely normal to the circumstances and acceptable. And I want you to give yourself permission to acknowledge it's okay under the circumstances.
What if I come into this and I say, wait a minute, you're thinking about this all wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Right? what if I approached it like that? Wait a minute, you're thinking about this all wrong. You're completely, get your head out of your butt. Pull up. Start over. Those can be damaging things. What can happen if we approach it like that?
Well, one of the things is speak from the successful experience that you've had. If you've had no success in overcoming anything similar to it, it's best just to listen and ask, is there something I can do specifically to help? Now, this is really important. If you offer it, be prepared to over-deliver, because any under-delivery, you have counterproduced any hope of help.
That's
that you
really
just
good
offered.
advice, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things is we want to align our words with the actions that we're willing to offer. and then demonstrate it and re-demonstrate it. The thing that we all feel is a loss of a sense of security. Our sense of security has been assaulted. And a lot of times, especially in management, I would liken very much to the fact that our police officers, there's the ideology. I'm supposed to hold it together. I'm not supposed to show emotion, and
Right.
I'm the hero in this capacity. And to the extent we hold them up to that. However, management is not any less vulnerable than our police officers, but neither do they need to impose upon themselves the expectation that they should be stronger than everyone else. We're all impacted. Let's acknowledge the obvious. We hurt. Let's agree to do something to move in the direction of health together. And if anyone has success of a traumatic event, or if you've found success in something that worked for you, invite that conversation. We'd love to hear how that helped you, because people want hope, Susan.
They do, and we our show, we've got to go here in just a moment, but I wanted you to address the PTSD, because you can get over that, and so many people feel like you can't. That those brain injuries are just irreparable, and you're going to have to be on medication, and just consider yourself damaged. When in fact there is healing. Is there anything that you can tell us? And I'm sorry that we've just got this short period of time. I need to have you on again, and as we address this again, hopefully for our September shows,
Right.
We talk more. But what would you?
The damage happened at the time of trauma, and then as a result of neglect is what evolves into post-traumatic stress disorder. What can be done on the immediate aftermath is recognize that you've got to retrain your brain, because a trauma, it's like a blunt force on the brain, only it's visual. All the five senses go into hyper overdrive. So all of this stuff is going into the mind. What we need to do to overcome and press through post-traumatic stress is you've got to allow your brain to retrain itself to recognize that event's over. And in light of the event, I have things to deal with, but I don't have to camp out there. I might need to visit some painful places, but we only visit and we learn and we move in the direction towards health. So it is a conscious effort and deliberate implementation of wellness.
I want to invite you to check out Veronica's books. Where can they find these?
They're on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, on my website, conflictresolutionspeaker.com.
Wonderful. We will also have this information underneath this video, as well as on her podcast page. When you go to offbeatbusiness.com, where you can find all of our resources. You can find our lineup, our upcoming shows, our events, the magazine, and all of that information, our sponsor information, at offbeatbusiness.com. And know that we will be continuing to address this throughout the year. This is Susan Hamilton with Veronica Sites, and thank you so much for your time today. You've been listening to the Offbeat Business Show.
Thank you.
That went long. Are you going to be able to keep it? Okay, good.